Hola, mi gente. Welcome back to Uptown Palante during our summer schedule of Monday mornings. I'm your host, Mino Lora. On today's show, we're taking a look at reopening in New York City and what this means for us uptown. As we're in phase 2, when so many businesses can now reopen, mi hermano Led Black will be speaking to Jose Moronta from 809 and Dyckman Express to hear from him how his small businesses have been not only able to survive during this time, but continue to serve, and what reopening means to them and his businesses. Next up, I will be speaking with Council Member Mark Levine from District 7 and the Chair of the Health Committee at City Council. We will hear from Mark what the impact of COVID has been in our uptown community, how government has responded, and what we can do to stay safe during this time. And now, it's time for the Minologue. As we end Pride Month today, we must remember to take time to celebrate the beautiful LGBTQIA community and all of the successes that we have recently won towards the work for queer justice in this country, including this month when Supreme Court voted twice upholding human rights for both our queer community and our immigrant community with DACA. Goodness knows we need some uplifting news in 2020. Dios santo. There's so much work to do towards equity and liberation for our people, and so often we just go, because it truly feels like we're running out of time. Yet today, as we speak about reopening, let's also remember to take this as a reopening opportunity for ourselves, to open ourselves, to build space for us to breathe, to pause, to find our own freedom within, and nourish ourselves for the fight ahead. Especially as people of color, it is so important to actively find moments to pause and do self-care. Throughout these two simultaneous pandemics that are devastating our Black and Brown communities, as Black women, as women of color, as Latinos, as immigrants, we so often just keep going nonstop. I know I've been drowning a bit in all of it since March, y además de eso, ser mamá, imagínense. And it's just so important to take a moment for yourself, to breathe, to pause. So let's do that today. As you're listening to both of the interviews with Led and myself, take the time to pause, to be present, and to breathe as you start off your week. And now, let's jump into it with Led Black and our Spread Love segment.
What up, y'all? So for the next episode, we're talking reopening. And I have my man, Joey Moronta of Dyckman Express and 809. Joey, my brother, how you doing, man?
Doing well. I'm doing very well. How about you, Len? Thank you for having me.
Thank you. You know, as the reopening, right, it's been 3 months. It was 3 months since I saw my mom, right? Like, how has it been for you on the front lines in the business?
You know, this is uncharted waters, right? So throughout this, you know, we've had to call a significant amount of audibles and trying to figure out how to go through this terrain. That's unprecedented, and do our best, you know, to mitigate the potential loss in business, and do our best to get through these tough times. You know, had to get really innovative and think outside of the box, which we've done our best to do. You know, and keep our best interests of our employees in mind.
And what I've really liked, though, you know, it's funny you say thinking out the box, because you do have the business, but I know you guys were also feeding senior citizens throughout the whole thing, right? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Before we started this program, which we'll make a week on Saturday, we were working with Somos. We were fortunate to be part of a program preparing meals Mondays through Saturdays, a large number of meals. That program ended, and we were fortunate enough to jump right into another program with UMG, Uptown Monarch Group, which a few restaurants are actually fortunate to take a part of. And the meals now are being purchased by the city, and they're being given to seniors, many of which aren't able to afford them or can't leave their homes. We provide them with meals for 3 separate days. So they get, for instance, the individuals who got meals delivered today receive meals for 3 days, breakfast, lunch, dinner. You know, and it's great to be a part of something like this. It gives us the opportunity to be part of a solution, helping people out, and also to, as we mentioned before, mitigate some of the losses that we had, because this is something that we're paid for, And we're able to unfurlough some of our staff and bring them in and help them out as well.
So this week is phase 2, right? What does phase 2 mean for your businesses?
With all of this, as I mentioned, with being kind of new terrain, you kind of have to figure out in the moment how you're going to manage this, right? So immediately in phase 2, I think it's a great plan, and it helps a multitude of places, of establishments, figure out ways to get new dining customers and fill a void. We're not able to necessarily to jump right into that right away because of what we're doing now, right? We have this obligation and this opportunity in which we're dealing with. So that's not something that we're going to just jump into right off the bat. But as things start to roll out, we'll figure out with what's accessible to us, meaning like what's allowed, and what we're going to do. So what phase 2 means to us right now, we see things loosening up, and we know that from what I've seen now, phase 3 is looking like July 6th, which establishments will be ready to open at 50% capacity, which is what I think a lot of people kind of expected. Indictment Express, we're probably going to roll that out immediately. 809, I'm not too sure yet. We still kind of again manage this terrain and consider where we are now, what we're doing.
I remember when on social media, the idea of 809 closing came out. It was crazy, right? Like the whole Uptown lost its mind because, I love Dyckman Express. But 809 is like different in the sense that I had so many cool events there. It means so much of the arts, culture, and business. So can you just give us what's 809? What's going on?
I'm glad I'm able to address that. In 809, of course, it was kind of bittersweet because you were able to see people's reaction to the news, right? I guess the bitter part was that you had something that was potentially taken out of context. My father had spoke about how that was a real possibility, which it is. I think for a lot of places, and you look throughout the country, some of the places, the many in which had to close down because of these circumstances. They're almost unbearable in some instances. And a lot of people took that and ran with it and said that we were closing down indefinitely. Again, that possibility exists for everyone. You're talking about an industry which is hard to survive in
normal times,
in normal circumstances, right? So you throw in COVID, it's even going to get tougher. And yeah, we're doing everything within our powers to prevent that from being a possibility. We know what 809. Well, people let us know what 809 means to the community. And, my father's very active in the community for a significant amount of time. So we would hate for that to be the case, which is why I mentioned we're doing our best and everything within our power to prevent that from being a possibility. We would hate for that to happen.
So there's no date yet for when it will finally reopen? We don't have that yet?
Nothing set in stone, no.
Gotcha.
But we're working through this. We're working through this. We're fortunate enough to take part of some grants, for Dyckman Express and some of my other family businesses. I'm helping out a total of 4 businesses. We have Dyckman Express, we have 809. My uncle owns a grocery store in the corner, which has been there predating both of those businesses, Dyckman Express and 809. And my other uncle owns a refrigeration on 170th in Amsterdam. And I've been doing everything I can to kind of help us through this time, whether it's through grants and loans and resources that we have at our disposal that they're not necessarily too keen to getting.
Well, Joey, man, my brother, thank you so much, man. We really appreciate your time. And I know you're going to keep up that good fight because that's what Dominicans do, right? That's what we're going to do, man. So I'll see you on Dyckman, my brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man.
And I always end my segment with spread love is the Uptown way. Mino, take it away. Much love, y'all.
Thank you, man.
Thanks, Led. That was great, as usual. Now, a few days ago, I had the pleasure of interviewing Councilmember Mark Levine, and between laughter and tears, we had a wonderful and uplifting conversation. And here it is. Take a look. Thank you, Mark, so much for coming and being here at Uptown Palante. We are thrilled to have you today in our episode as we think about our city reopening.
Gracias a ti, Mino. I'm really happy to be here. It's a great pleasure.
As we look at the reopening stages, we're on phase 2 now, and we look at phase 3 and phase 4. what are some things we can do to not only stay safe, but as Uptown to not only survive, but thrive?
Well, first, I don't want people to think that because we're going to phase two, that the pandemic is over, that the virus risk is gone. It's still very much out there in our city. And so we need folks uptown to take care of themselves, to continue to wash their hands and avoid hugs and handshakes. And of course, wear a mask when you're out there. Think about the risk, especially if you are vulnerable because of your age or your medical condition. That doesn't mean that we can't begin to patronize local businesses, that we can't begin to meet up with folks in open air settings like parks, as long as we take those precautions. Being locked up has also had a terrible mental health toll. People call it quarantine fatigue, and that's real, especially going into a hot New York City summer. So while we slowly and carefully get back to some in-person social contact, let's not forget about the ongoing risk of the virus. And you mentioned the mental health challenges. I'm really worried about this, and I don't think it's gotten enough attention because understandably we've been focused on the medical crisis of the last couple of months, but I'm quite worried that levels of anxiety and depression, feelings of isolation and despair are all going up, and that needs to be addressed. Even now, it could take months and years to get over that. So people have to not be ashamed to reach out for help. This is no different than a physical ailment. Mental health is a real challenge that can be addressed, but people have to seek help and do it without shame or stigma.
It's so important, and especially in our communities, so often, as a Dominicana, like within our own Latino communities, we tend to think that it's something wrong asking for help about something about mental health, but that is not the case. And I think about our kids too. So many of the young people we work with at PTP have been stayed in home because the parents are amazing and are really trying to protect them, but they coming out, even for our young people and our children, is going to be a phase, and seeking out that support is so important.
Oh, yes. So for young people, this has been a traumatic experience that will impact them for years to come, much like 9/11 impacted people who were young at that time, and all of us.
Yeah.
But I think young people are particularly vulnerable. So what People's Theater Project is doing now to give young people an outlet for expression, for connecting with peers, a chance to be inspired by arts, to be challenged by arts, is even more important than ever before.
Thank you. Yeah, so many groups of town and all over the city. The arts really, I think, have come together in a way that is very special, and I think speaks to what we as artists believe, right? The power of healing that can come through that. One of the things, as you mentioned, it is not only a public health crisis, but an economic crisis. Do you fear there's going to be an onset of mass evictions after this? Because we know that a lot of our families have not been able to pay rent because the same reason the food pantry lines are so long. There is food security, there is rent security, insecurity, I mean. So what can we do about that? How can we support our tenants and our buildings in order to come out of that?
I am extremely worried about this. We have not only reopened cafes and barbershops this week, but also housing courts are starting to operate again in New York City. And that confronts us with the possibility of a wave of evictions like none we have ever seen in this city, because so many people have simply lost their income and therefore have no ability to pay rent and have accrued a lot of back rent, which I believe that needs to be canceled for folks who are low income and have, again, lost their livelihood because of this pandemic. But absent that, we are risking a terrible wave of evictions that could lead to homelessness and only compound the suffering in Black and brown communities like Uptown Manhattan. And actually, my colleague in the City Council, Vanessa Gibson, and I put out an op-ed today in Gotham Gazette pointing out this risk and pointing out a possible solution, which is expanding right to counsel for tenants to every single zip code of the city, We passed this law in 2017. It's been phased in zip code by zip code, but we want to go citywide now with the right to counsel to help prevent this wave of evictions. And there's some reasons why it would probably mean the pace of housing court cases would have to slow down. And that would also allow for some social distancing in housing court, which is generally extremely overcrowded. And so there's also a public health interest here, as well as a compelling need to secure justice for tenants who could be heading into an absolute hurricane of evictions in the weeks and months ahead.
I want to switch a little bit and think about, Juneteenth just happened. This past weekend, we did an amazing children's march in Washington Heights, Children for Black Lives. So we've been having all these gatherings because, as you mentioned earlier, there is this other strong movement happening, much needed movement to make change, which we have seen the people rise and we have seen government make change, right? So how can we support city council member and all of the city council member leaders who are saying we're going to defund by $1 billion the police? How can we help you to make that happen?
This is going to be an incredibly contentious budget negotiation between the city council and mayor and the administration. It's going to be playing out between now and probably the last couple days of June. And we need everybody speaking out now in favor of fixing the imbalance in the budget. The budget the mayor proposed, what they call the executive budget that the mayor proposed back in April, had a 32% cut to the Department of Youth and Community Development and a less than 1/3 of 1% cut to the police department. That is absolutely indefensible. That cannot be allowed to stand. Has to be fixed in the final budget that we pass. And we need regular people speaking up. Reach out to your council member, reach out to the administration, to the mayor, through social media, through emails, to deliver a very strong message that you want this fixed and that you want a budget which reflects value placed on young people, on social programs, on health programs, on the arts. And to do that, we're going to have to cut the NYPD budget. There's just no other choice. Now's the time to do it.
We will be tweeting, we will be sending calls, making phone calls to council members and the executive team as well to make sure that our voices are heard in that. And finally, to end up, una pregunta que we always ask at the end, in the midst of all of this, right? And we are home with our families and juggling all of this work, but we keep going. El show se llama Uptown Pa'lante. What keeps you going? What gives you hope at the end of the day, every day?
Bueno, me alegro mucho poder acabar con un tema un poco más de esperanza.
Sí.
De verdad siento ánimo ahora viendo el impulso que ha dado las protestas. I feel uplifted by the momentum that the momentum for change right now. This is not the first crisis New York City has confronted. It's not the first crisis that Uptown has confronted. We have dealt with and overcome economic depression before. We have dealt with pandemics before. And we've dealt with blackouts. We've dealt with anti-police uprisings before, right here in Washington Heights.
Yep.
And we have come back. We've come back after every one of these challenges. And I'm really optimistic that we're going to see change. We're going to see real investment in health equity, real investment in the kinds of social programs which ultimately do a much better job at keeping our city safer than policing does.
Yes.
And real accountability in the police department in a way that we've just never been able to achieve before. I think Uptown is going to lead the way on this because we're a community which I think has social justice in our DNA, has economic justice in our DNA. That's been true over every wave of immigrants that's come through here, from Irish to Jewish to Puerto Rican, Cuban, Dominicano, Afroamericano, again and again and again. We've come here with a strong sense of social justice, with a mission to make change, and we're going to lead now as we build the new New York the new Uptown. It's going to be fairer, it's going to be healthier, it's going to be smarter and stronger. And I can't wait to work with you, Mino, with the arts community and all the activists Uptown to make that vision come true.
Casi lloro. I agree. Thank you so much, Mark. Councilmember Mark Levine, leader, neighbor, vecino y amigo, an advocate for Uptown in so many ways. Thank you so much for being here. And
Thank you, Mino. Shout out to Led Black, mi hermano, and all the Uptown leaders who are putting together this important conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, and stay safe.
Gracias.
Cuídense.
My great thanks again to today's guests for joining us today to inspire us as we continue to move forward and through these pandemics that are impacting our city, our neighborhood, and our entire country. I end today and start off the week hopeful. It seems evident that the anger and sadness from a few weeks ago that was so raw and immobilizing has been transformed. While we continue to mourn those who have been unjustly killed due to the color of their skin, this anger is now hope. It is now love in action. There is, without a doubt, a lot of work to be done, but also an unmistakable paradigm shift. As we begin to reopen our city and see all the change that has taken place and new progressive queer leaders of color who are all but certain to be joining our Congress, I am for the first time in weeks hopeful for our country, for our future, and grateful for the children and youth leading the way. We are ready to listen, to organize, to continue the work of undoing racism in this country and demanding this at every corner of government and especially in our little corner of the world in Washington Heights. And now, for our moment of joy, here is PTP artist Maria Jose Fajardo, who will lead all of us through a short breathing meditation to start off the week. So let's breathe together, mi gente. Vamos a hacerlo. Be safe. Have hope. Do the work. And wear a mask. Pa'lante, Uptown.
Hi everyone, hola mi gente. We're gonna do a short exercise using breath, movement, and imagination. It's going to be a meditation with our eyes open. So find a comfortable position and start inhaling, opening your chest, shoulders back, look up. Exhale, and center of our chest back, shoulders forward. Inhalamos pecho hacia el frente. Exhalamos pecho hacia atrás. Inhale, chest forward. Exhale, chest back. We're going to imagine that we have a little ball of light on our chest. Una bolita de luz en nuestro pecho. Inhale, and that ball of light is going to expand on our chest, expand en nuestro pecho. Exhale, and that ball of light is going to become really small, chiquitica. Inhale, and it's going to continue expanding outside of our chest. And exhale, comes back to be really, really small. And inhale, and it's going to continue expanding as big as the city, tan grande como la ciudad. And exhale, and it's going to become really, really small. And inhale is going to continue expanding as big as the country. And exhale, and it's going to become really small, chiquita otra vez. Inhale, and it's going to continue expanding as big as the earth, tan grande como la tierra. And exhale, and it's going to become really, really small. And inhale, and it's going to continue expanding into the universe. Hacia el universo. We're gonna stay here. Inhaling, inhalamos. Exhaling, exhalamos. With our chest open, with our heart open, with our eyes open. Inhale, exhale. Ready for what's coming. Thank you so much. Gracias. Hi, Caddy. Good job, Caddy. Yes, good job.